Dan Andrews is obviously going to win at the end of this month. I'm not a bookie. I don't have the precise odds on the matter, but I'm also not an idiot. You know, let's be honest with each other. It's pretty obvious. And it's also pretty obvious to the Victorian Liberals, who are consequently getting a little bit despo. So despo, in fact, that 2 days ago they posted to their Facebook page this video, which I'm going to show you. It is the most utterly morally bankrupt and cringe bit of abject thievery imaginable. Have a look at this garbage.
Remember when we hit the streets to protest against Daniel Andrews' world record lockdowns? Remember when Andrews forced us to get the jab or lose our job? Now even our own unions are admitting he's a prick. Don't let him get away with it. Put Labor last.
Authorised by Seema Queston, Liberal Melbourne.
Remember when we hit the streets? Who's we, you absolute parasites? The Vic Libs, these fucking Libs, they didn't even have the spine in 2020 and 2021 to be proper balls to the wall anti-lockdown lunatics like their little mates in the DLP and all the other fringe far-right parties. Oh no! They had to settle for farming out their shit ideas that, you know, for pandering to conspiracists, to clandestine lobbying and memeing groups that work for them like Advance Australia, and some of their fringe figures like Bernie Finn, who, might I add, they eventually had to drop anyway for saying abortion should be banned for rape survivors. Because remember, the rule is, you can be a despicable cunt, you just can't do so in public. That's the way of the Libs. This is the party of valour thieving from actual public scumbags, it seems to me, and just hoping that the adjacency would rub off. None of these pandering dogs, come on, were the ones marching on the CFMEU or walking up the West Gate. We know that. The Libs, no, they were the ones who were busy figuring out how they could crawl their way out of publicly saying anything that would mean anything to anyone or get them in trouble with anyone. Look at this peak weasel shit. For example, this is something I found earlier from September 2021. It's a statement issued by the Victorian Liberals after the protest at that time outside the CFMEU facade, where they, the anti-lockdowners all trashed it. Basically, what the Vic Libs saying here is that John Setka was lying about how none of the cookers rallying outside were even CFMEU members, which is, it was a minor point of contention at the time. Yeah, some of them were CFMEU members, many weren't. Here's what they say. This is the last thing Victoria needs right now. For the sake of economic certainty, internal chaos within one of Victoria's most powerful trade unions, representing over 30,000 construction workers, is a serious risk to our COVID-19 economic recovery. You can just feel them hating themselves while they write this garbage. It would be super exciting if they could just let their hair down and go, COVID-19, Chinese biowarfare, fake scandemic. Not that they believe that. These guys don't even believe fucking anything, do they? But at least writing that would get anyone excited about them for once. You get a bit of coverage, wouldn't you? But instead they have to talk about COVID-19, economic recovery, guys. Weak as piss. If you genuinely think that a good solid electoral play would be to scab off of the long since dead vibes of the guys who weed on the Shrine of Remembrance, you really are kind of fucking desperate, hey? But at least that video, to its credit, made me feel a thing, something, anything. Look at the rest of the Victorian Liberals Facebook page and holy guacamole, this is fucking Sleepy Town. Corruption! Oh, corruption! IBAC! Corruption, guys! It's corrupt! IBAC! I'm not saying that corruption shouldn't be investigated. Okay? It should. Yes, sure. Of course. Absolutely. I'm just saying this feels like very impotent, weepy dick stuff. Like, nobody's swarming to the Libs because of this weak sauce shit, are they? But hey, Dan Andrews runs a fucking behemoth of a state Labor government. If he wins this election, which he will, we know that, he will next year become the longest serving Victorian Labor Premier. And he's got a lot done in his time there. He's decriminalised street sex work, legalised voluntary assisted dying, amazing, led the way on sick pay conditions for casual workers, started talking treaty with Indigenous people. However many problems there's been with that process, it's more than can be said of most Australian governments. And, importantly, his infrastructure work has radically transformed the state. It really has. He's given Victoria effective public transport for the first time since Jeff Kennett fucking gutted it in the 1990s. So, yeah, he's done a lot. And accordingly, he's got a huge attendant vote. Which no matter how much dedicated News Corping, no one can seem to take away from him. But many of the lefties I know don't give Andrew's Labor government their primary vote. I certainly didn't while I was there for the past couple of elections. If you wanted to dislodge some of that rusted-on left vote to the Andrews Labor government, if you really were serious about that project, there's a lot that you could campaign on. The biggest example to me is that Dan Andrews has consistently run on a law and order agenda. Victorian prison population has grown by thousands over his time in office. It was offset by a temporary COVID-era reduction, but now it's duly going up again. Andrews spent a criminal amount on turning VicPol into nothing less than a large paramilitary force, over a whopping $4 billion a year on giving Victoria the largest police force in Australia by far, and it's one equipped with military weaponry to use on its own people. We've watched VicPol use those toys against protesters left and right for years now. Andrews expanded the size and powers of the PSO force, which has brutalised members of the public time and again. He has passed draconian anti-association laws, passed anti-environmentalist protesting laws. What the Andrews government did during COVID to that public housing tower alone was unforgivable, and that's to say nothing of some of the many other draconian measures that were implemented during that pandemic. So there's many, many reasons from the left perspective to disagree with the Andrews Labor government, and if you let me indulge myself for a moment, personally, as a lefty, if I were still in Victoria this state election, I would be voting for Victorian socialists because I think they're a little more active and energised this time around, and I like their policy platform. Simple as that, It's why you should vote for any party, really. Frankly, I'm also more than a little annoyed at the Victorian Greens' recent public performance related to internal transphobes, and I would be putting my left vote elsewhere, personally, just until I felt a bit more confident about them. But I definitely wouldn't be giving my vote to the party that paid for the robo-cops who have time and again brutalised so many of my comrades, good and decent people. It is a paramilitary force. Dan Andrews paid for it, and I think that's fucking unforgivable. And it's not just me. Those really are issues that could change many lefties' minds away, I think, from the Labor vote for an election if someone campaigned on them properly. But the Libs can't talk about any of that, can they? I mean, they can't talk about VicPol overfunding. God, the done thing in Victoria for mainstream political parties to do is for everyone to collectively pretend that law and order is underfunded. It's this dance they all have to play with each other. Oh no, you can't say the truth about that, can you? You have to pretend that cops are like paupers begging for a few more coins. So instead, without anything real to campaign on, the Libs and its attendant News Corp and tabloid media Voltron that assembles at election time against centre-left parties is talking about what? A car crash from 9 years ago and Dan Andrews falling over and hurting his spine, during the pandemic. I don't even know what to say about that stuff. It's not that people can't talk about it if they want. It's just that I think everyone popularly intuits, left or right, they know that this is weak source gotcha material. It has very flaccid energy as an election play. It doesn't even remotely feel to anybody like stuff that would really sway many people's votes. But really, on the whole, what do we expect from this cunt? I remember this one moment from last election where this cunt said that he would be bringing back Life Be In It, from the 80s or whatever, if he were to win the election. And when I heard that, I immediately fell into the soundest, deepest 18-hour sleep of my entire life. That has to be the single most boring campaign announcement I've ever heard from anybody. I was genuinely impressed at how marvellously dull of a thing to say that was. Matthew Guy is so uninspiring that even his big scandal is boring. It's just that he happened to eat something in the same room as a crim. What a fucking Xanax of a man. So we know that the Victorian Libs are fucked. We know who will win power. There's frankly nothing exciting for me about this election at all. So all that remains to me is to undertake my traditional duty and whip out the ball and go Pokemon hunting. Expect the 2022 Victorian state election Cook candidates video to be coming out sometime before the state election. Let's catch some rare ones together, my friends. Support my shit, please, legends. Chuck me a mullah if you love me, and I will give you more reasons to love me. I'm at patreon.com/TomTanuki. Thank you.